Guys, and welcome to the next interview. We're so happy to be down here in Gloucestershire at the moment to meet Mr. James Druitt, the man behind HUGEhands, the main man himself. We've come down to do a little bit of a chat with James, find out a bit about his story and his background and how he got to where he is today. So really looking forward to having a good heart-to-heart with James. We've had a few chats on the phone just to kind of get to know each other. So we're just going to try and tease out a little bit of the character, the man behind the scene. Yeah, not just the music, but the real person. So we're going to have him here. So thank you very much, James, for inviting us down here. Absolute pleasure to come down to this beautiful countryside and gorgeous home. So we'll get underway straight away then, James, yeah? So from our chat, I understand that you kind of crossed paths with the festival scene back in the late 80s at the tender young age of 13, yes? And obviously that had a bit of an influence on you. So could you tell me some of your early recollections from those events? Can you remember that far back? Well, not be as far for you.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. Well, basically, I grew up in Devon and lived in a very rural area. Grew up with music, always growing up with music, classical music, jazz music, parents and school influence on the music. And then, yeah, when I was 13, there's a lot of free festivals popping up around the area, being in that sort of rural area. And I just remember up behind the house, about half a mile away in the woods, all you could hear was this drum beat pounding away all night. And leading up to that, I was standing at the end of our road, and there were just trucks and buses, driving up there, convoys of trucks and buses driving up to the woods. And I just thought, when you're that age, it's quite an exciting thing. That was the first sort of free festival type thing I'd sort of witnessed. And then after that, edging into the early 90s, I mean, that was before rave music, that was more bands. But then when we got into the early 90s, there was a massive rave scene, free party scene. And as soon as I got the driving licence, that was it. I was off, with my friends. So
Straight off in your tractor.
yeah, it was a Mini at the time, actually. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So I'm understanding that obviously you had quite a diverse musical influence, obviously from your parents and your peers and things that were going on around you. So when did you start to notice that your kind of focus was changing towards more of the underground scene? How did you notice that start to change?
Yeah, okay. Well, that was when I started going to the early free party, and they were mainly in our area. It was deep house sound systems and techno sound systems. So that was what I was really started to get into, and it stayed with me. It stayed with me for a very long time.
So are those places still there? Are those events still taking place? Have things changed since then?
There are still free parties going on. I haven't been to any for quite a few years now. And also, as well as the free parties I used to go to, there was an awful lot of nightclubs throughout the southwest that we used to go to as well, commercial raves. Unfortunately, now a lot of them have closed down. They were in towns, they were also in rural areas. Used to have a lot of out-of-town clubs, manor houses, in big sort of country homes, and where they used to have a lot of parties. But that's all gone now, all shut, I'm afraid.
I think that's pretty much the same on every music scene, though, isn't it? Everything just keeps on moving and changing all the time. But then I understand around about 1993, 1994, there was rather a big event that kind of captured your attention. Yeah? Do you want to tell us the censored version?
Yeah, I will do. Well, yeah, it's the first Glastonbury I ever went to, 93. And it was 93, 94. And yeah, it actually blew me away. I mean, it was a lot of people think about Glastonbury as just a big commercial thing, all the bands, but the electronic music that they host is absolutely incredible. A full spectrum of electronic music. And in the early days, you didn't have to have a ticket. You could just turn up over the fence, or through the fence, or the fence used to get smashed down. It was basically a free party, and you didn't actually have to go into the festival site to have a good experience, because people used to bring their own sound systems, so you could have a big party outside the site if you wanted to. But yeah, the first time I went, I literally went what I was stood up in. I had nothing, and since that was the way. But since then, I've probably been to 17, 18 Glastonburys now.
Wow.
And as the years have gone on, obviously the festival's changed massively. It's got more commercial. It's still probably, in my eyes, the best festival there is. Those days are absolutely, very, very good. And the more years I've been going, the more sort of luxury my stay has been. So gone from tents, then I got my van and caravan, and and change of clothing and a shower as well.
Absolute luxuries, brilliant. So I know you started mixing music at a relatively early age, yeah? So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the mixing started on my mixing vinyl, obviously, on 1210s, which I've still got to this day. And it's my brother, actually, my younger brother, that started to get me into the mixing. And we used to sit there for hours and hours mixing together, and with some of our friends as well, other friends. So good days. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So I understand that you moved to Wiltshire at the age of 21 to undertake an engineering course, and then I believe somebody special came into your life. Yeah, can you remember her name? Cut that bit out. No, I'll leave it in.
Yeah, I moved to Wiltshire and went to a college to do some higher education, and that's where I met my wife.
What you called?
Hannah.
Hey.
Yeah. And so that was that. We left college. She went off to Birmingham. I used to spend an awful lot of time going to Birmingham as well. Yeah. Some excellent clubs, excellent life in Birmingham. But I was going up there just for the weekends. And then, when she finished up, we bought a house in Bristol, and lived in Bristol for sort of 3 or 4 years.
Now, I understand again, shortly after that, you embarked on a rather big project that was slightly consuming. We've actually seen the end result here, so tell us a bit about that and how you found that, James.
Well, after living in Bristol for sort of 4 years, we had the opportunity to do a barn conversion, and ended up, we sold a house in Bristol, moved out to the site, and spent 4 or 5 years living in a caravan, which was great at the time. That was pre kids, and
Would you do it again?
I probably would do it again. Yeah, I probably would. But the mixing suffered. I had the deck set up in the caravan. And it was tight, tight for space. But when I did have the time, I did sort of try and keep my hand in.
Well, it wasn't too tight for space, because I understand in that time 3 children came along as well, yeah? Yeah, so but they did take up a bit more space, so there's been plenty of mixing going on, all kinds, yeah. So how did you manage that, and trying to have a family, building a house, having children, and still find time for your music?
Yeah, we started the house build, the barn conversion, and literally within 2 or 3 weeks of us finishing 3 or 4 rooms, our first child was born, and then I've carried on doing the project. Whilst having 2 more children, so now we're 3 children, mixing at its best, trying to finish the house, also trying to continue with the mixing and producing now.
Yeah, very, very tiring, but actually that just shows your determination and how music keeps on driving you through, though, doesn't it? Yeah. Now, I understand the early days that you were using Ableton as part of your producing. Is that the case? And how did you find that? Because it's not easy, is it?
No, Ableton, it was the first program I've used seriously. I started with Ableton, spent many hours, any spare time, researching, how to do various things on YouTube, and eventually got to the stage where I then bought a push controller, Ableton push controller. Got my head around that, and then also bought a nice Novation MIDI keyboard, which actually I probably use more than anything else now, is a keyboard rather than the controller.
So then your taste started to develop more towards like the deep house and tech house. Is there any particular influences that kind of pushed you in that direction, or are the people who inspired you to, with that style of music?
Yeah, I think I've gone full circle with my music, because the early influences were the deep house sound. You had the DIY, free party sound system, inland nights, all those sort of deep house, free party type sound systems. Also, there were influences from the US, all the early house sounds. And I left that area for a while. I went mixing techno, I went mixing breakbeat. I love my old school breaks. But then when
that's a good old school break.
yeah, but yeah, that's right. But when it came back to actually producing music myself, that sound never left me, and that's what I wanted to start producing and developing that sound.
So I know by trade you're an engineer, which obviously is very structured and methodical. Do you find that helps or hinders you with your music when you're actually producing?
If I'm honest, I think on the technical side it helps in terms of sussing out software and hardware. But when it comes to the creative side, I'm very I'm quite a perfectionist. So sometimes that can hold me back, because I'm always just slightly sort of changing things at the last minute, or just keep trying to change things just to try and make it sound is what I think. It's never really finished. No, it takes a long time for me to actually finish a track and let it go. Yeah.
So how would you describe your particular style now, your style of music production, to listeners listening again? So is there a way you can kind of define it, or what the elements are that you bring together?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, because I find trying to place my music, especially when I'm looking for labels to place my music, I find quite often it doesn't actually fit. But I would say, yeah, my sound is, as I'm growing as an artist, it's becoming more melodic, but it's still deep, that deep house, deep melodic, slightly on the techie side, some of it as well. Yeah.
So do you want to tell us about some of the other labels that you've been working with as well?
Yeah, so obviously you guys, Deep Fix, Piston Recordings, Delve Deeper, Moist Music, Sound Vessel Recordings, Closer to Truth, and then this year I've still got to release music on Records, and also Spiritualized, and I think things are progressing. Yeah.
So how do you find working with Deep Fix Recordings, and how do you feel like they differ from other record labels?
My experience with Deep Fix Recordings is the best, one of the best labels I've worked with. I mean, they're so supportive in terms of like, it's a family, and even if the music is not for them, they will try and advise you and guide you on where music will go on other labels, and give you that encouragement and that support, which is so important, because it's a total minefield actually. Once you the music industry, there's a good team, a lot of experience, music, legal side, an awful lot of experience there. So it's great to tap into.
James, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on board, but there's one more pressing question that everybody wants to know. So how did the name HUGEhands come about? Here's the exclusive. Keep watching.
Well, I spent a long time when I knew that I was going to start producing music. I didn't want to use my name, so my own name. So I spent literally weeks and weeks trying to think of a name that I could use, and I kept on coming up with names, going on to SoundCloud, typing it in. Someone had already beaten me to it.
Come up with the first part, huge, and you're just struggling on the second part that you could use. Yeah.
So anyway, one morning, came down in the kitchen, been thinking about it so much, making a cup of tea. Just looked down and looked at my hands. I just thought, well, what about huge hands? There's a lot of people say, you know, I've got quite big hands. I don't think they're that big, but anyway.
Tell you
What?
let's get them up there. I can assure you that man has shovels for hands with fingers on. Look at that. James, thank you so much for it. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we're looking forward to joining you on the decks tonight. So thank you so much for bringing us down here.
No problem at all. It's lovely to have you down here. It's going to be a great evening. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. Cheers. Thank you.